What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Aviators. So I've been getting a lot of questions about this model Cessna and the variations between, the different years of the Cessnas. When did they go from the bar flap to the electric flap, or manual to electric flap? When did they change the elevators on these? When did they change the size of the tail? When did they go from the straight tail to the swept tail? And the first thing I gotta tell you is I'm not an expert on Cessnas. I'm not even knowledgeable about them. I'm knowledgeable about this one because, I spent a year chasing it down. And so I thought it'd be good if I just did a video on, this model of Cessna and what it's got versus what the later models of Cessna have. Okay, so that's the goal here today. Okay, so the first thing is the manual flaps. 1963, as I understand it, is the last year of the manual flaps. Now, the reason why I wanted a 63 Cessna and the reason why I wanted a high horsepower 63 Cessna was because it's got this manual flap. And so when I'm doing a short takeoff, I can pop the flaps, put them back down, get into ground effect, and fly off easily. This flap, the way I did this was I took a piece of heat shrink that was, I think, 1.5 inches. First I wrapped the whole thing in carbon fiber, then I laid the sticker on it, then I epoxied over the whole thing, then I put the shrink fit over this, and this is just for wiring. It's 1.5 inches, heat shrinked it on, and now when your hands are all sweaty, you don't your hands don't slip around. But anyways, back to the point here. 63 was the last year. 63, 64 were the transition years. They were the last year of the manual flaps, and so I really wanted one of those because I was going to be popping this thing off the ground. Now, the second thing to know is the 63, 64 were the transition years when you got the big elevator. Now, if you look at some of the older 172s, the elevator only comes out to here, so you basically get this new fairing here and the fairing here, and they extended this elevator on either side. So the reason why I wanted that is because it gives you a lot more authority at heavy weight and low speed. So that's that. The next thing to note is the swept tail. Now, I don't know when they went from a straight tail to a swept tail, but I can tell you this transition year, I wanted the swept tail. I don't know how much authority a straight tail has versus a swept tail, but I really like the looks of the swept tail on a Cessna, and so my understanding is that 1963 was the first year of that swept tail. Okay, now back to the flaps. So typically when you get an engine horsepower upgrade, they limit the flaps to 30 degrees. Now, the reason why they do that in the STC is because they just don't spend the money to test and do all the FAA required tests to go to 40 degrees. Well, the thing I love about the Franklin STC, the 220 horsepower STC, is that these flaps go all the way to 40% or 40 degrees. And that's a big deal, when you're wanting to get in short and get stopped quick. And when you can see how much those flaps are deflecting there, it's pretty serious. It's stoppage is what it is. The other question I've been getting a lot, and it's mostly through email, is the extended fuel. So let me just talk through how this system works. So basically, here is the wingtip. Okay, the wingtip comes off. There's a spar or a rib right in here. We had to drill out that rib. We had to cut out this rib that's up in here, and the tank slid in. Now I'll throw some pictures in of what the tanks look like because I think I have a couple of pictures, so I'll put them right here. So the way it works is we had to add some of these access panels so that we could get all the plumbing in. Here's the drain for the Flint Tim tank, the actual tank itself. And so basically how it works is all the plumbing runs along into here and comes back into the main tank right about here. Okay? And so the way this works is you have your auxiliary. Here's my auxiliary fuel gauge right here. And I'll give you a close-up of that. Basically, here are the two switches. And basically, you just flip those on and pump it into your mains. Right here and right here. And it works really good. It works spectacular. I've probably flown it 45 hours since I finished, and it works flawlessly. It's actually just like a mall. You know, when you get to half tanks, you turn on those pumps, drain them all the way into the mains, and off you go. And I'm seeing a fuel burn of about 8 gallons an hour the way I fly this 23 squared. And so at 8 gallons an hour, I've got 64 gallons. I can fly a long time, you know, longer than my bladder can stand it. Let's see, the other question I get is tires. Let's talk tires. Okay, so on the mains, I have 8.5 by 6s. And on the front tire, I have 8s, okay? I keep these at 19 pounds PSI. And, you know, so far I've got 0 complaints. I love the way the airplane sits. If you put 8.5s on the front, you're really tail low, and I don't like that. So, pretty sweet. So the other question I've gotten is on this tail skid, of all things. You know, how it works, how easy is it to install? Well, I did a whole video on it, and I'll put a link in there so you guys can watch it. But it's really just a bent piece of spring steel. And what happens is, you'll notice that elevator is deflected there. It basically points down, or it deflects enough to protect your elevator in the event that you skid the tail, so you don't, you know, cut up this whole bulkhead here. And you'll see in a lot of training Cessnas that these bulkheads are all wrinkled and looking terrible. This plane was never a trainer. It was it's only got 2,200 hours on it. Okay, so that's that question. Next question I get a lot of is the stall kit. It's really not that it's not that hard a kit to install. It just takes time and patience, drilling and deburring. But here it is. Basically, it's just a cuff that goes over the edge of the wing. And that cuff, I forget the square footage that it adds to the entire wing, but it does add some rigidity, and it adds some square footage. I want to say it was 14 square foot per side. I could be wrong on that, but it's close. I mean, you know, if you're looking for exact science here, you shouldn't be on YouTube. Okay, let me show you the original profile of the wing. So if you look up in here, you can see that original profile of the wing right there. Another place to see it is at the wing root. So this is the original profile of the wing. This is the new profile of the wing. You can see that cuff really extends the leading edge by about, you know, I'd call it 4 inches or so, but it does dramatically change the airfoil. And then with the Sportsman Stoll kit comes the wingtip, which I've got this one with an LED on it. Okay, the other question I get is, why didn't I remove my tail strobe? because supposedly you get like 5 additional knots just from removing that strobe. Well, my philosophy is I want to be seen, right? So I left the strobe. I put an Wayland LED in there, and then I replaced the tail beacon with a Wayland as well. And this thing looks like a Christmas tree coming into land, which is what I wanted. Okay, the next one is the extended baggage, and how far back does it go? Well, there it is. I've got a bicycle pump that I keep in there. Got a net installed. The weight for this is, of the 120 pounds that can go in this rear area, and there's the placard for the 120 pounds, only 50 of it can go in that extended baggage. So if you're looking at the external of the plane, the extended baggage goes to about right there. It goes to that bulkhead. So there's a lot of room. You know, my camping kit is right over there, and I can fit one red bag in the tail, and then in the extended baggage, and then one red bag right here. And that's typically what I do. This, by the way, this is a Selkirk interior kit, and it's really, really easy to install. You just have to, you know, measure 3 times and cut once. Okay, the seats. So the seats kind of turned out just beautiful on this airplane. I mean, just stunning in terms of the workmanship. I did not make these seats. I bought them as a kit and then installed the kit. And so basically what I did was I took apart the old seats, and then this kit comes and you put the leather kit together and slide them over. Use 1300L for the seat backing, and that's how you kind of bond it in. And it's kind of an art form once you're doing it, because if you don't get that kit on there just right, they don't look good. But these ones look really, really good, so I'll show them. So these seats are from Alaska Sport seats. Now I have a bench rear seat. And then bucket front seats. And you can see the stitching, the quality here is just impeccable. Now these are expensive. For this entire kit was probably $5,500, but I've sat in this airplane for 8-hour trips and not had any complaints whatsoever. BAS shoulder harnesses. Don't fly without them. You know, they'll save your life, they'll save your face. About a 4-hour install there. By the way, the seats were about a full day to get done. The BAS shoulder harnesses were probably 3 or 4 hours. The interior probably took 2 weeks. And that was me kind of working full time on it. Sportsman Stole took a week. Avionics took several months with starts and stops and waiting for new avionics and stuff like that. It was kind of frustrating. Then I get the question, well, what do you like the best in the airplane? Well, my favorite is always the 796. Every time I fly, I point to it and say that's my favorite instrument. But I really like the Stratus chargers, of all things. Just, you know, keeping all your stuff charged up, they work great. And I think they have a 2-for-1 deal on those. And so I recommend them. The Avidyne 440s, after about 6 to 7 hours of flight, love them. Absolutely love them. The things that I don't like about the 650, they fix in the 440. They just do, you know. I flew today and it was bumpy, and, you know, the touchscreen is hard, so you can use the buttons on the IFD 440. They're just great nav comms. G5s, haven't had a single issue with them. The GDL 39 3D, which is the ADS-B in, working great. It communicates, here, let me just show you. So there is the GDL 39 3D. It feeds the 796 and the iPad. IFD 440s. The 335 is my ADS-B out. Audio panels working great. You know, no real complaints with any of the stuff I got going on in this airplane. Okay, now onto the floor. So I got this from, it's called Aviation Floor Products, and they're out of California. So this is a burn certified rubber diamond plate. I installed that diamond plate, and you can see that I just riveted these pieces of aluminum to it as heel kicks, and it turned out really well. And you can see I've been all over Idaho, Montana, flew into the Miracle Mile, and you know, I was able just to wipe this out. You can see a little bit of dirt in there from today. I did a similar thing on the rear. That is velcroed in so that I can just pull it right out, but I just cut an area right here for the seat tracks and just velcroed it in, and it works great. Okay, so the last question I get is, what did all this cost? Honestly, I'm not sure. I tore every single wire out of this airplane. It took me a whole year to get everything out of this airplane and rerun all new shielded wire and, you know, new RG 400 for all the antennas. You know, I wanted a straight airframe to start with, and you know, this airplane is like a new airplane. It doesn't, you know, the paint isn't great on it, but for what I'm using it for, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to spend any more time on the paint. The you know, the avionics, you know, there's a helicopter flying over. The avionics install took several months, and you know, I don't know if I'll do another install. I've done 3 of them now, or 4 of them, and I'm kind of over avionics and how much they cost, and so I probably won't ever do another avionics upgrade. The only thing really untouched is the engine. The only thing I did to the engine was stop all the oil leaks, and I still have a couple small ones, and I think they might just be residual oil on the engine that's dripping out, because it seems, you know, I'm putting oil in the engine, but less of it's coming out. So I think that's a good thing. So I did a video on how to fix oil leaks, and it works. On every plane I ever have, I'm going to do the same thing. Oil leaks cause me not to sleep. But in terms of going back to the original question, in terms of the cost of all this, it's prohibitive. You know, if you're thinking about taking on this kind of project and then getting your money back out of it, you're nuts. You're not going to get your money out. You're going to lose money. If you're not committed to long-term ownership of an airplane, don't do this kind of project, because you will never get your money out of it. You just won't. You know, you can get I don't know what Cessnas are selling for these days, but buy what you want, unless you have the time like I did to do this airplane. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think my Q&A video is a wrap. And all right, keep the questions coming. If you like this sort of thing, like, subscribe, comment, and till next time.